Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We have our guest, Dr. Laura Fallon, all the way from the Long Island area over near Rutgers. She's actually at Rutgers right now, Rutgers University. And I'm your host, Nicholas Haffter von Heide with the International Euphonium Summit Living History Series. And thank you so much for joining us today, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about this whole series that you put together.
Well, it's outstanding that you join us, especially during the school hours, and knowing that you have a lesson of sorts pretty soon here. So thank you for working us into your schedule for today. And for those that aren't familiar with our kind of format, we do cover some really cool information in the podcast segments that will be put below in the YouTube video in the info section and at internationaleuphoniumsummit.com/Laura-Fallon. And you can find out all her information, bio, and all that she's doing and the amazing work she's doing in all these communities across the eastern coast here. So thank you so much, Laura, for joining us.
Of course, thank you.
Okay, so let's dive into your beginnings. So tell us about your beginning.
Sure. So, I'm very fortunate that the public school that I went to on Long Island, the Northport School District, has a very strong music program. So I wouldn't be the musician, the person I am, without that school and the teachers there. Um, so my musical journey basically started like through like many younger students, like learning recorder, like in the general music class, but also when I started playing like euphonium as a young uh, fourth grader.
Fourth grade.
Yeah, so that school district we started in the summers before, like the summer right before fourth grade. They have a music program that's an exploratory for students to just kind of see where they're at, try the horns, get basic fundamentals established before the school year, so that once the school year starts, they can kind of just jump right into band. Um, so that definitely played a major part in like establishing fundamentals, but also I didn't mention this in the other our prior conversations of the podcast section, but my older brother also plays euphonium. So um, so I always thought that was super cool, and like, oh, I just want to be like my older sibling. So kind of like noodling around with it here and there until like when it was my turn to pick an instrument, I chose euphonium. It's just like it felt kind of like the right thing to do, and I've loved playing it ever since. So going back to like with the school systems, I'm so fortunate to have like that strong foundation that a lot of times, like when you're starting kids out in the school year, they just have like maybe band once or twice a week, maybe once a week, a lot of lessons. But the exploratory program that Northport offered was when I went through, it was like 5 weeks. I think they've since
Wow.
I think they've since, because of like budget reasons, shrunk it down to 4 weeks. But it's like every day of the week, Monday through Friday, you get an hour with your teacher, and a half hour with your teacher, a half hour with a student teacher, just to like reinforce the concepts that you learned. What my first teacher through there was Bob Spampanato, wonderful, wonderful human being, wonderful tuba player. He's moved to California since then, and he still comes back to the Northport Community Band to play a concert or two each year, even though he lives out on the West Coast. But wonderful person, still an inspiration to me. Um, so just like establishing not just fundamentals, but also like when I had him as a band teacher in elementary school, kind of like challenging me with like as a student in terms of like what type of new music can you read? Like you're comfortable with all the band music, but can you say, look at a tuba music? Do you know what notes those are below the staff and what you would play? And just like that kind of introduction to like ledger lines and like reading things a little bit differently, like in terms of like not sorry, in terms of getting used to reading things like with the octave displacement at like an early age, just like a basic, here's a fun exercise to do on top of other things you're working
In elementary.
Yeah, it was, and it wasn't like anything hard. It was like,
but
here's like
but
a couple
still,
things to look at. Can you try doing this? And it was just like, okay, sure.
that's
Um, and like I feel like he was a very good judge of like what students are capable of and like where how they can be pushed further. So
that's really
um
cool. So
yeah.
what was it like when you brought the euphonium home, or you're going into? I mean, I'm assuming that your parents knew that you were going to pick euphonium.
Yeah, they do. They knew because like they saw that I was like interested in playing that before like it was even like the time to choose an instrument because like my older brother played it. I kind of wanted to do the same thing.
So could you
um
buzz on it, buzz on the mouthpiece from an earlier age? Did you try?
uh a little bit. I don't remember how old I was. Probably like it was probably like a year or two before like the actual time I picked it up. So it wasn't like super young or anything. Um, but I could get like a couple notes. Oh my gosh. I just remember playing around with it. I don't remember what the sounds were,
That's
but
fine.
yeah, it was
That's
just
really cool.
yeah, and just like the focus is always on like just having fun, doing your best. That's the main point of it.
Okay, so we're at fourth grade band. Did your so how much older is your brother?
Uh,
What grade was he?
5 years,
5 years.
6.5 years ish.
So he was in high school.
Yeah.
Okay, so did he ever come back and help you in elementary school with?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very close. So absolutely. And like we would do duets at times or like we still sometimes do duets. He's a mathematician. But we do duets sometimes every now and then around Christmas.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really sweet. Um, wow, that's really awesome that you have a great relationship with your older brother, and you play duets. You've intrigued me with answering the questions that I already had in my head with that. So that's phenomenal. I mean, Christmas time must be really amazing at your household, where your parents get to hear hear those moments of their kids playing that music together.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fortunate that they're like super supportive of it. Even like when times I've like practiced at like 12 a.m. It's like they're just like keep it down, but like in a loving way.
Well, that's cool. Um, so going into kind of, and I'm trying to remember, the systems in New Jersey and that area are a little bit different. I mean, obviously, with starting fourth grade, is sixth grade considered middle school in that area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, I'm from New York, so I think it also varies sometimes with some of the specific schools that might have sixth grade in elementary or might have like eighth as part of like high school. But at least for me, growing up, it was like K through 5 elementary, 6 through 8 middle, and then 9 through 12 high school.
Okay. Okay. So, what was it like being on Euphonium and at the elementary school level? Did you get to sit in with any of the middle school bands or do any of that?
Um, well, they would have like outreaches from like the upper level schools, like the middle school or the high school would sometimes come in to play a concert for like the younger kids, which was fantastic. I don't remember if they ever did like a side by side type of deal. Outside of that, um, but they would have New York has like we have a NISMA like grading system for solos that goes down through like the beginner levels, not just like advanced like high school students. So there would be like all county rehearsals for like fourth and fifth graders to play together from like different schools across the
Oh,
county.
wow.
Depending on like how they scored on their solo on their NISMA, which festival, which includes like a solo, some scales and some sight readings. The complexity of sight readings depends on the level. The amount of scales depends on the level, but depending on like their score on that and like teacher recommendations, you can play in like an all county ensemble with students from around the area. So I had that experience, and I also had the wonderful experience of participating in the SCMEA, which is the Suffolk County Music Educators Associations. They have a day of tuba and euphonium every year that's geared towards students. So 4 through 12, but also including if there's like younger students who just want to watch, if there's older professionals or retired musicians that want to participate. It's such a wonderful experience that they get a guest artist every year from the TV euphonium world to just work with the kids for some time, have vendors, do like a mass ensemble, have a select high school ensemble for tuba euphonium, and like a performance for all the participants as well as like the parents, faculty members. So I was very fortunate to participate in that basically every year since I started, because they have like beginner parts for the younger students, so that they can play alongside like middle, high school, some teachers in that. And that I feel like is also like one of the central, most influential parts of like my approach to like teaching and like playing and just being so enthusiastic about the instrument. It's like there's that sense of community across like generations per se. And
Absolutely.
and one of the main organizers of that event is Don Sherman, who I mentioned before, who's like he's retired as a music educator from the school districts, but still is involved in the SCMEA Day of Tuba Euphonium and so on. But like that was such a monumental experience that I try to encourage my students in like the Long Island area to participate in. A few years they had live streamed it with like with COVID and all that. I don't know if they're going to be live streaming it anymore, but like they had also live streamed the concerts, so I kind of shared that with some other euphonium folks who might not be able to go all the way out east for that. But that I feel like was such a wonderful experience, learning wise and just having fun because it's fun pop arrangements and movie themes, but for tuba and euphonium.
That's really cool. I mean, even your, I think it was it your master's that you, or was it your doctoral thesis where you were talking about video game music?
Oh, that was my master's. I did
Master's.
yeah, so my focus with my master's was on like video game music, the kind of like the history of it and like how the technological constraints of the early consoles from like I focused on like the 80s and 90s kind of influenced like how they approached composition, especially how that affects later games. I'm a huge video game nerd. Legend of Zelda's my favorite game since I was a child. I'm really into all of that. But yeah, sometimes I've also done video game arrangements at Tuba Day, which is cool.
Oh, that's really awesome. My euphonium son absolutely loves Legend of Zelda, and that's one of my favorite games. Actually, I remember the first time I beat that game on the Game Boy.
Mm. It's just
Uh,
like the gameplay is fantastic, but also like the music and the
uh-huh.
intricacies of it and how they tie that into the story. Like a lot of them, like let's say an Ocarina of Time, you have to learn these songs on the ocarina to get through various points in the game. In the Wind Waker, you're conducting the wind and how they like incorporate that musical elements. And similar with Majora's Mask, you have like the different masks that transform Link, but you also get different instruments, different tone colors. You can form a band at some point later in the game.
Mhm.
It's just uh, it's just a fun aspect of it. I kind of like I try and bring like non-classical influences to my playing and approach to music. So it's like video game music. I
So
listen to like yeah. Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
no, it's okay. It's just as we're talking, and as you're like uh, letting us know about the video game world and stuff like that. We have a an amazing composer who also loves video games and the influences some of his um, work. And it'd be interesting to see if he hears this particular video segment, and I'll send this to him afterward. It's our composer cohort over in Germany right now. He's from Italy, Luca Suto.
Oh,
And he's written for Tala Rouge and a lot of amazing soloists. But for this element, he just finished up a work, Tale of the Phoenix, I think was
oh,
the title. And I'm going to send this over to him. He's, to be honest, we've conversed quite a few times on these segments, and I think there's other artists and composers who would be willing to uh, have an have a the Mask of Zelda framework and perspective on when writing a composition that might be premiered well enough by Dr. Laura Fallon at some point here in the future. Oh boy.
yeah.
So we're not even into middle school yet, and I think that's a really cool way to wrap up this segment and prepare for your, your next thing in your student that's you're meeting pretty soon here. So with that being said, wow, I'm really blessed and honored to have you on as part of our cohort, and looking forward to covering your journey through and with Euphonium for many, many, many moons to come.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful getting to talk about like my experiences learning euphonium and like some of the folks that I've worked with and inspired me. So thank you.
Absolutely, and it's I can't wait to dive into middle school on the next conversation, and talk more as time allows. So, with that being said, everyone, thank you so much for joining us on this YouTube version, the video format. Follow us and follow Dr. Laura Fallon on the links below at www.internationaleuphoniumsummit.com/Laura-Fallon, and get to know her a little bit more. And if you want to know anything else, or if you happen to write a Zelda-ish piece for her to kind of glance on, take a look. So thank you so very much, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.